So I wanted to talk with you about an idea and a concept that there happens to be a lot of controversy about, and that is the idea of supplementation, food supplementation. Do we need to supplement our food? Do we not need to supplement our food? How much is the right amount? How much is not enough? How much is too much? And how do we know what to take and make sure that we're getting the right things? So let me throw a couple of ideas out to you. Let me bend your ear a little bit about a concept that kind of came into my consciousness very recently, which some people might consider to be late. But I had my reasons for not being sure about this, and now I have my reasons for being sure about it. So I talk a lot about the idea of inflammation, and I talk a lot about the idea of the negative impact of overstimulation of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, the constant assault on our system from food, drugs, the atmosphere, noise pollution, electronic overload, just this constant assault on our system that I talk about over and over and over again. So there's actually a theme that runs through most of my work, and that includes work with respiratory patients as well as cardiovascular patients, as well as general public people. And that theme is inflammation and the negative impact of inflammation on our bodies and on the quality of our lives. But that's another cycle, and by that I mean, in addition to looking at the impact of inflammation on our lives, we have to be aware of and look at the impact of our lifestyle on inflammation in the body. So when we think about inflammation, we all have things that come to mind. So when we think about respiratory patients, we think about inflammation of the airways, we think about inflammation of the alveoli, we think about inflammation of the endothelium on the inside of the blood vessels. We think about inflammation of the gut. We think about inflammation of the blood vessels inside the carotid arteries. We think about inflammation of the blood vessels inside the brain, right? We think about skin. We think about all these different things that make us uncomfortable, but not only make us uncomfortable, but predispose us to diseases and conditions that in many cases are often very preventable. There's a song that goes, accentuate the positive and eliminate the negatives. So that is really the whole concept behind what ultimate pulmonary wellness is about, which is teaching you how to eliminate the obvious and not so obvious deleterious factors in your life and to add in as many of the positive ones as we can. And when it comes to the nervous system, we're talking about decreasing and reducing and calming the activity of the sympathetic nervous system while encouraging the activity of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest system, which is also our healing system. So here's the thing, a concept that I became extremely aware of lately, first through a conversation I had with a friend and then through my own reading and research, is the concept of topsoil. Okay, now I know a lot of you live in much less urban areas than I, so I'm probably the least knowledgeable about this on the block, and there are probably many of you that know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's the idea that farmers will grow in topsoil, and it got me thinking about the fact that, hey, that food that's grown in that topsoil comes with a certain expectation with it. So for example, there's this idea of, can you get all of the nutrients that you need from food? The concept of, can you get all the nutrients that you need from food? And so there are people that have this concept and this idea that if you eat a balanced diet, you can include all of the nutrients that you need. But as I started to think about that more and more, I started to come up with the idea that, well, when we think like that, there are many, many assumptions being made. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is I may set out to do a week-long juice cleanse where all I'm going to eat or drink is organic juices. I'm gonna have green juices, I'm gonna have orange juices, I'm gonna have red juices, etc., etc., etc. And I'm gonna buy these from the organic juicery, right? So I'm gonna order my week's worth of juice, or I'm gonna go there every day so I get it the freshest juice. I get the most nutrients because they've just ground up and juiced the juice for me, right? And in doing that, I may think that I'm doing something amazingly healthful for myself, which I may well be. However, okay, my ability to nourish my sense on the juicery's juice is only as good as the quality of that juicery's juice, right? So my ability to gain nutrition from this juicery's juice is purely dependent upon the quality of this juicery's juice. Now, the thing about that is that this juicery may have set out to create the healthiest juice on earth, right? And they want all the best organic materials, and they want this, and they want that, and they want this combination of fruits and this combination of vegetables, and they don't want any of this crap in there. But they are also making an assumption, and they are going on the assumption that the farmers who they get their vegetables from, who they get their fruits from, who they get the raw materials that they are going to make their juice from, are actually providing the products that will provide the health benefits that they want to provide, okay? So they're counting on their suppliers to be delivering them the healthiest fruits and vegetables and delivering to them exactly what they want and exactly what they say they are going to be delivering them. So let me take this a step further. So now we have a farmer or a farm or farms that for decades have provided these types of services and these types of products and prided themselves, taken pride in the quality and nutritional value of their products, right? But you know what? There's been a couple of slow years and things aren't what they used to be. So maybe now, okay, maybe now they're using a little bit less nutrient-rich soil than they did in previous years, right? So my point in telling you this is, let's say, this is what I think I'm getting, right? So this is what I think I'm getting from the juicery. But in fact, what I'm really getting is this, right? And let's just say that the juicery thinks that what they're getting is this, okay? But what they're really getting is this. So my point is, you cannot start with this and wind up with this. So the idea is that we are only as good as the products we buy. We're only as good as the supermarket that buys the products, that buys it from the farms, that buys it from the juicer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea is, even if we try our best to eat this healthful, balanced, nutrient-rich diet, if at the source, the soil does not contain the things that we need in it, okay, and this application can be applied to many, many different things, but if it's not really what we expect it to be, then there's no way that we're gonna get the maximum benefit from it. So when it comes to inflammation, okay, our goal is to reduce inflammation. When it comes to, you know, the negative effects of just everyday biological functions, and the production of free radicals and the oxidative stress on our bodies, and then add to that the chemical strain and the pollution and the environmental strain, etc., 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 our bodies are in a constant fight. And very often, what I suspect is that they are fighting from a very underarmed and very manned position. And by that, I don't mean underarmed. I mean, I feel that we're not giving our body the weapons and the tools to fight these free radicals, to fight this oxidative stress. And so what do? Okay? Especially when you have a disease whose basis is inflammation, pulmonary hypertension, okay? The basis is inflammation of the endothelium and the smooth muscle inside of the arteries that overconstrict. Pulmonary fibrosis, constant inflammation that winds up in the production of scar tissue. COPD, constant inflammation, right? Heart disease, inflammation. Arrhythmia, irritability and inflammation. Heart failure, inflammation. So what is the plan? What is the strategy that we're going to use to fight this inflammation? Well, first of all, it's try to come in contact with as little or as few inflammatory processes and triggers as possible. So obviously we know don't smoke, but then there's other things that we can do, and we add in things like stress, anxiety, pollution, any triggers to your respiratory disease. Even a lot of the medications that we take can actually be detrimental to us, okay? So, whereas at one point people would ask me about supplements and I would say, well, I think that you can get most of it through a healthy diet, I wasn't taking into account, and I underestimated the size of the fight we have to take to the dog, okay? I underestimated the size of the fight we have to take to this battle, not only if we're going to reduce inflammation, okay, but if we're going to rehabilitate from inflammation and recover from inflammation and then prevent future inflammation, right? So the first thing is we got to take this fuel away from the fire, this fire that's burning through our bodies. We have to remove the fuel. And then we have to put the fire out. And then we have to take steps to make sure that this fire is not able to spark up again and start the process all over. So yesterday I was sitting in my dermatologist's office going to get some treatment for some inflammation that I've been experiencing due to lack of sleep, added stress, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was Pulmonary Wellness Online. But the idea is that I was in the dermatologist's office and I picked up a magazine, and it was like, it must have been fate that I picked up this magazine and turned to this page, because the first line of the article was, sometimes you don't know how big a hole is until you try to fill it. Sometimes you don't know how big a hole is until you try to fill it. And, it's interesting because I've been speaking to you a lot about autobiography in 5 short chapters, and the analogy there is falling into this giant hole, right? And so this goes nicely with that and says sometimes you don't know how big a hole you're dealing with until you try to fill it. So what does that mean? I'm saying that you may not know just how inflamed you are. You may not know just how nutrient deficient you are. You may not know how poor the quality of the fuel is that you're giving your body in the form of foods and behavior, including exercise, stress management, meditation, etc., 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 or until you start to make some steps towards a positive lifestyle change, And then you start to say, hey, you know what? I didn't realize how bad I was until I started doing this. And that's a great realization, okay? Not to say, hey, I didn't realize how bad I was and I'm still gonna stay bad. It's like, now I know I was bad because I'm getting better now. I'm making these positive lifestyle changes and I'm actually seeing the results. So I wanna talk to you a little bit about some vitamin and mineral supplements. I'm not talking about any brand, I'm not selling any product, etc., etc., etc. I just wanna tell you some things that I think it's worthwhile for you to consider adding to your regimen, okay? They say that your body requires approximately 90 essential nutrients for life, okay? And since we know that many people can live quite a long time without these nutrients, I'm gonna say that we need these 90 essential nutrients to live the optimal life, okay? So there's a product called Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0, okay? And I'm not gonna show it to you right now, or I am showing it to you, so I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna show it to you, but I'm not recommending this particular product as much as I'm saying to you, you need to have a great multivitamin and mineral, okay? So I take that once a day, okay? I take a scoop of that and I drink it and I nurse it, and it's giving me all the vitamins and minerals I need. But I also take this one super multivitamin, okay? So that's to cover all the bases. In addition, I take this mineral supplement, which is plant-derived minerals. And I take those three things just in case, okay? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to obviously eliminate as much negative as I can, but to accentuate as much positive as I can. And I wanna make sure that when it comes to giving my body what it needs, I am not leaving any stone unturned. And when you have a chronic illness, whether it be heart disease, lung disease, gastrointestinal disease, etc., 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 the need to bathe your body in healthy vitamins, minerals, and nutrients is exponentially greater. The benefit of that is not only making sure that there's no nutritional deficiencies, but also bathing your body in antioxidants to help prevent the damage that is done by everyday life. The other thing to consider are supplements that directly touch on inflammation. And so that is where we go into things like fish oil, okay? Omega fish oil. And we talk about it in the book, but you want to make sure that your fish oil has the proper ratio between EPA and DHA. Alpha lipoic acid, okay? So alpha lipoic acid is excellent for reversing cell damage. So think about it. If you were a cigarette smoker, if you were exposed to asbestos, if you have lung disease and heart disease and you have all this cell damage and you have all these kind of battered cells, these cells that have taken so much abuse that they're just not doing what they need to be doing, okay? At least not optimally. Things like alpha lipoic acid, things like CoQ10 for the mind, and make sure if you're taking coenzyme Q10 that you're taking it in the active antioxidant formula, which is called ubiquinol, okay? And then another thing that I was turned on to yesterday was called golden black seed. And this is golden black seed that comes also with turmeric or however you say that word, okay? The point is that even if you try your best to do everything right, there are only so many things that are in our control. And that's another theme that I talk about over and over again. The idea of how much control do we really have in the events that take place in our lives. And as I mentioned to you, we are not in the driver's seat when it comes to procuring our nutrients unless we're actually growing the stuff ourselves. And again, even if you go to a farmer's market, okay, there's no guarantees that that stuff was grown the way we want it to be. So my point is, fill in the holes, make sure there are no missing links, make sure that there are no nutritional deficiencies, that there are no deficiencies in vitamins and minerals, that there are no deficiencies in any substances that our body needs to function optimally, and then look to things that will help to cool the body off, that will help to reduce inflammation, that will help us in terms of reducing sympathetic outflow, reducing sympathetic nervous system activity, and then taking all that fortification and adding it to the behavior changes like exercise, like eating well, like stress management, relaxation training, meditation, etc., etc., etc. And now we're starting to talk about stuff. And now we're starting to really lay the groundwork for a healthy life and for undoing the years of damage and undoing and addressing what I call this constant assault on our system, both internal, external, and universal. All right? So give that some thought, okay? Think about the fact that how healthy do you really want to be? How much chance of success do you want your body to have? And if you think about it in terms of a building, okay, we talk about the idea that the body is a temple. So if we're building a building and we use the cheapest materials and we use the cheapest laborers who have the least experience and they have the worst tools, right? Odds are somewhere along the line our building's going to suffer. So again, if we give our body the cheapest materials, if we give them any materials at all, and we expect them to make do with next to nothing, that shouldn't surprise you when you wind up with inflammation, or when you wind up getting a cold every couple of months, or when you find it difficult to fight off a cold, etc., etc. So again, strong multivitamin mineral complex. Okay, if you can do one thing only, strong multivitamin mineral, omega-3 fish oils, vitamin D3, and those would be my top three. So a strong vitamin and mineral supplement, it could be a multi. And then the other thing is the final thing, which I didn't touch on before, is probiotics and prebiotics, okay? I am a strong believer that the gut is crucial in so many of our body's functions. And when the gut, where the direction of the gut health is the direction of your body. So if your gut's unhealthy, then it's going to be hard for you to have a healthy body, because the gut is involved in absorption and bringing those nutrients in and eliminating toxins, right? So So I found one yesterday that has a probiotic and a prebiotic combined. So in other words, the prebiotic sets the tone in the gut for the probiotic to do what it does, for the probiotic to do what it does. And I'll tell you another thing that I got schooled on yesterday. I used to have this idea that if a probiotic didn't need to be refrigerated, that it's not going to be as good, because my thought was, how does it stay alive if it's not refrigerated, right? And what somebody explained to me yesterday was that once it hits the stomach, the probiotic actually multiplies about 4-fold every half hour. So good news. Super duper health food store in New York City, and these guys know everything. And I'm going to bring my friend on to talk to you specifically about supplementation for respiratory and cardiovascular health and well-being, okay? So food for thought, ladies and gentlemen. Give it some thought. Hopefully it's oxygen rich, not oxidative, stress rich. Hopefully it's healthy, nutritious food for thought that is going to help you, again, fill in the deficiencies, fill in the cracks, and build your building blocks to success, okay? Have a great day, everybody. You know what day it is. This is day number 12. We got a dozen days today, okay? Not a dozen donuts. Don't eat that dozen Dunkin' Donuts. I'm probably gonna get 2 dozen Dunkin' Donuts today from my patients, but I promise I'm not gonna eat any of them. Have a great day, everybody. Numero 12. Bye-bye.